Association.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of SpinSheet Happy Hour. I have to apologize. I didn't check the live button appropriately, so
But we're here
2
now.
minutes late. I'm sorry. It
We're
happened.
late, but it's all
I
good.
did the whole countdown thing where it just did, and I thought that would push us in. Anyway, my fault.
Here we
Anyway,
are.
sorry, folks. We are now live, Beth. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in for another edition of the SpinSheet Happy Hour.
Tell us who
Before
our
we get,
sponsor is. Yeah.
oh gosh, let me just go back through this. Really, hey, at least I noticed it now. It could have been a long time ago before I noticed that. So let me just, before we go anywhere from here, let me just say thank you, Mount Gay, for sponsoring this episode. If I was telling people earlier or trying to, if you want to support SpinSheet, help support our advertisers. We are 100% advertiser supported. We give out everything we do for free: our magazines, our websites, everything. And we even have a crew party you don't even pay for. So please support them. And again, another thank you to Mount Gay for sponsoring this one. Beth, what are we talking about tonight?
Hello, we are talking about women's sailing programs and why they are important. And we've got some women here today who have been part of a very successful sailing program at their club, and they're going to tell us all about that and how others can do something similar if they'd like to start that where they are.
Awesome. Well, I think we've got a couple of guests we've had before, one new. Our two guests that I'm going to bring on right now are in the green room, and we've got Jane, who is at the airport and ready to tune in, and I'll get her on and let you get her on the screen as soon as I can.
Excellent.
Well, there's Emily and Kristen. Hey, guys.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hello.
Yeah, well, we are so pleased to have you here and be talking about women's groups and why they're important at sailing clubs. So happy Friday. What's everybody drinking this evening? I will start. I have a lemon lime. It's a hard seltzer.
Nice.
And this is a margarita, just because it makes me think about summer, and I am getting ready for summer. We'll be having one outside on Sunday, I can promise.
Very nice. And you like the salt. Good choice.
I love the salt.
Kristen.
Nice. Those are good drinks. I just have a soda with a little bit of Mount Gay in it.
Nice. Very good. I'm a little embarrassed. I don't have a Mount Gay drink with me because I'm traveling. But if I had it, I'd be drinking it. But I did remember my hat. So
hat goes on the road with you.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
So I'm just having a nice glass of Chardonnay.
Well, we like to try and put our glasses to the middle and clink. If you you got to kind of figure out where the middle is.
There you go.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Okay, I'm going to sign off or get off the screen and get Jane ready to join us. Goodbye.
All right. See you on the flip side. All right, I'm not sure if Jane's coming on immediately or not. So welcome. You ladies are both from Herrington Harbour Sailing Association and the Women Underway program. And so thank you for being here. I know you have a robust program, and I'm really excited to hear more about it. Sharb and I were saying we've had Emily on the program before. We've had Jane on the program before. We know Kristen well and her work, and she really is promoting with her work women in sailing. And so we sometimes mention Women Underway, right? That program comes up a lot, but we haven't ever had an hour that we really dedicated to a women's program, why it's important, how you start one at your club, and how it can really make the whole club a better place, right? So thank you for being here. Emily, why don't we start with you? If you can maybe just tell us a bit about your sailing background, and then but more focused on the background of Women Underway and when it started and why it started, if you've got all that.
Yeah, sure thing. I race with my husband, Keith Mays, on Jubilee, Beneteau 36.7, and we've been racing that boat about 15 years. But I sailed and raced for 10 years before that. And I was expanding my comfort zone and doing some women's racing down in Solomons, which is about a 5-hour trip from Herring Bay here at HHSA. So after about 5 years of that, I thought, we have a lot of women who race in HHSA, and a lot of talent that, we can grow. So why don't we try to start a women's regatta here in Herring Bay? So my focus was definitely on racing. And so I, in 2010, thought about getting some women together, some local women. So we had some meetings at other people's houses, got some commitments, and then had some training with the racing rules of sailing, looking at the course book, what to expect. Because many of the women had raced but hadn't focused on, pretending that they were the skipper or the captain. So we had to, switch that mindset to being the one in control of the boat. So we did have a women's regatta in 2010. We had 5 boats, just HHSA, our local club. And then everybody loved it. It was so empowering. We had so much positive energy at the party afterwards. A lot of lessons were learned. A lot of, connections were made. It's tough when you have a group of women who may not have ever been on your boat before. And then the women enjoyed getting together and socializing and doing more training. And a lot of cruisers were involved because, women who cruise, honestly, many have spent more time on the water than I have, having raced for 25 years. And they have a lot of skills. They just might not be confident in those skills or be willing to step up with a partner or the family to make decisions on a boat. So the group just got larger. The focus went from racing and included cruising. And then we got formal and chose a name, Women Underway. Women Underway in Herring Bay was how it started. And then got a forum in our HHSA website so we could communicate via the forum instead of word of mouth. Develop some regular meetings. So every other week in the summer, we would meet outside at HHSA at the club. Not the club, but the Sailing Association. We don't formally have a clubhouse. In the winter times, once a month, we would meet in Virginia. We had a lot of women who came from Virginia, so we tried to have a little equity there. So we put something on the calendar, which helped. Mm-hmm. And we always had a topic of some sort, so a reason to get together and talk. And it might be sail trim, knot tying, anchoring, provisioning a boat, favorite cruising spots, using the radio, making sure you can start the boat that you're on, in case somebody falls overboard and you become the one who needs to be responsible. How to start the boat, how to get the sails down. So it just morphed into something bigger than racing, for sure. And it is much bigger than racing now, although we still have an annual women's regatta.
Great. So I think Jane is now ready to join us. So she'll be coming on. Hello, Jane.
Jane.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Thanks for dealing with me as I run through an airport, but it's nice to be here.
So this is how dedicated this group is, right? We've got someone joining us from an airport, and we're thrilled you made a little time for us. And I know that we're not quite sure how much time you're going to have. Do you know, Jane?
I'm going to be the last person who boards tonight. I've got my son who's going to hold the gate open for me. So I think we've got about 20 minutes of me, whether you like it or not.
Very
So.
good. Very good. Well, Emily just really shared with us the beginnings of Women
Yeah.
Underway, and how it evolved. And as she said, it morphed just on its, on its own. It sounds like, not that there wasn't a lot of work, I'm sure, that went into it, but it sounds like you started something and the need was there, right? So it attracted people. And Jane, how long have you been, associated with a program, and really, how has it impacted your sailing?
So I've been involved with Women Underway actually only for 3 years. I joined almost just as we went into COVID, a little bit beforehand. And then I've been the captain of the program over the last 2 years. So for me, it's been really twofold. First of all, the first meeting I went to, I all of a sudden literally got to sit at lunch with these great women that I'd seen around the club, but not had a real chance to network with and really talk to. And I literally made fast friends from the moment that I turned up at that first meeting. I was just so impressed with the energy and with the activity and with everyone's desire to connect. Whether it was a ultra new sailor, we had some of those at the table who wanted to learn everything, or whether it was someone who was really, really experienced. They wanted to share and they wanted to connect and they wanted to pull everyone up and along. So it's been incredible. For me particularly, the last 2 years have been, what do we say? It's been tough. It's been hard to keep connections. I work from home. I've got 2 teenage kids in the house, and actually the monthly Women Underway meetings have been this real lifeline. It's been fantastic. We're a really active group of people, about 20 to 30 people routinely on the calls. One of our calls we had 45, and just been a terrific way to connect. Aside from that, what's been amazing is, although Emily just said, you don't have to be racing, last year was my first year to race in the women's regatta, and boy, it was so amazing. It was so much. It was fun. What do we like to say, Emily? It's competitive but fun, and I thought it was fun and competitive, and just the power of a day with and just tens of women on the boats that we had coming out and teaming up together. They trained together. They then partied together, and it was really amazing. So for me, Women Underway in particular has really been the glue that's kind of held things together, especially over the last few years when I think we've all needed some glue. So it's been great.
And it sounds like, I know what Emily's words were, expanding your comfort zone, that this program has really helped you do that.
Yeah.
You have a pretty wide comfort zone, I think, Jane.
Well, so it's interesting because I think everyone's got a comfort zone that they need expanding, right? So I hadn't big boat raced a lot. I certainly hadn't skippered my own boat. So yeah, that was it was the first time I had skippered my boat in a race and been responsible for finding, working with, and instructing and working with that crew. So actually, yeah, I had expanded. The next part was, so we haven't spoken about the cruise that we ran at the end of the year. And yeah, I've cruised a lot, but it was really interesting. So for me, it was, how do you understand everybody's needs? How do we run a program that fulfills as many needs for as many people as we can? Because like Kristen, we had some ultra experienced women. Some of the, one skipper is a licensed captain. We have a lot of people who have cruised a lot. But how do we help them feel comfortable to bring other women on that they might not know, so that we can involve as many as people as we could? How do I, as the coordinator with Margaret Stewart, make decisions about where we're going and safety and briefing people and things like that? So I think there's an opportunity. Everybody learns something all the time, and I'm certainly learning.
Well, we've got a couple questions here. And Kristen, right before we get to those questions, I want to bring you in and let you share your involvement with the program, when you got involved, and how it's helped you expand your comfort zone, what you've learned.
Yeah, it has been awesome, of course. I just searched online around for sailing groups. We've had our boat about 10, 15 years, but we've never been part of a sailing, any kind of organization. But last two springs ago, so the start of the pandemic, I was searching around, bad timing to get involved with another group, or perfect timing. And I reached out. I saw I had just missed one of their presentations about spring commissioning. I was like, oh, it's spring and we're going to commission our boat. I want to join this because I very much like checklists and knowing what to do ahead of time and planning things out. So I thought this would be great, even though we do it every year, but I wanted to have that clarity in my head. So I thought the meeting would be great. So I reached out to just the email address on the website, got multiple really friendly responses, emails back from people. And I was like, oh, this is great. So I joined from then, and just having that environment of women and expanding the comfort zone of going out and doing things in a sailing. Like I said, I've never been in a sailing organization. So that part itself I felt kind of emboldened, just putting myself out there and doing the cruises and starting the women's regatta, things that I had never, my husband and I have cruised on our own in our boat, but not I've not gone with other people or helped to try to organize and plan, figure out, okay, so when you're cruising, what are all the considerations to take into account? We've always just kind of hopped in the boat and gone. And the women's regatta was amazing. I had very little racing experience, so that really was awesome to get out of my comfort zone there. I was excited to do it, and I was grateful for the opportunity. And in an environment where it was, I have raced on other boats with male captains that have been very great, but it was also great, a little extra comforting to be just surrounded by women and feeling the comfort level of being around people who are a lot like me.
So here is, I think, the $1 million question that I was going to save for later, but I just can't, because what I really want to ask you, and we will get to our viewer questions because there's some really good ones coming in. What is different when you step on a boat that has all women on it and no men, right? I will say, I think in my almost 40 years of sailing, I think that has happened to me twice. Every other time there's been at least one man on the boat. Nothing wrong with that. I love it. I've had great experiences, but I have very few experiences sailing with only women. So tell me what is different about that. Because to me, that gets at the heart of why this type of program might be necessary. Who wants to start? Jane, you go first, because I know we have limited time.
Yeah. Look, my first season racing was actually an all-women crew. One of our members, Bev Wright, specifically ran an all-women crew and actually threw her father off a few years beforehand so she could do it. It was really collaborative. So we'd get on and there was a discussion. It was the style of leadership on that boat was really different, and it was good. There was a lot of talking afterwards. Hey, that went well. Do that again. So the communication style was different. Unlike you, I've raced now with great men and great mixed crews and love it. I do think that just like in a work environment and others, there's a different way that we come together as a group when it's women. And if we can do it and do it really well, it's pretty powerful. In addition, when you get a group of women together, especially around the Chesapeake Bay, you can have the most incredible sailors. We have so many talented people. I had on my crew, I had the first skipper of the Naval Academy offshore team as on my bow. I have a nationals champion racer as my tactician, and wow, right? So we have so much talent, and when you then combine that back together, you can have a really communicative race that works really well. And the same thing on a cruise. It's different. We have really different discussions at night in an anchorage with a boat full of women than we do with a mixed crew.
So Molly is asking, does the club ever go the way of most book clubs and become a wine club? So I'm wondering if some of these evening chats on the boat when you're at anchor, they maybe get a little philosophical, or maybe they're sharing information, maybe all of the above.
Yeah, look, I think it's actually a really good question, because I wonder if that was meant in, Molly, if you mean that in the positive or potentially the pejorative. So actually
right.
Absolutely, we have cocktail nights and we do all the same thing, but we've actually tried really hard to not fall in. We try to make sure, as you said, Emily, that we really look at, people want content, and they want connection and content and a cocktail. So it's fine. You can have all of those three things, but we try to make sure that we're a purposeful group of women supporting and connecting and training and helping other women, so that it's not, dare I say it, just a wine club, because these are, pretty focused women who want to learn about sailing.
Yeah. Emily, did you want to add to that and talk about what dynamics that you've noticed are different with an all female crew, or really what the benefit is?
Well, the word that comes to mind, and it started, when I first did a women's regatta and was the captain, is empowerment. It is so empowering. I don't think many women really recognize it's, especially in the beginnings, when they've been sailing and racing for 5-10 years, and still learning a lot, as we all are, but I don't think we realize how much we actually know. Mm-hmm. So I think when women are on the boat and racing with men, and if they're not the captain, I think we're constantly thinking about things, watching what's happening, thinking about tactics. But on many boats, we're not invited to speak up. And sometimes no one on the crew is invited to speak up. But in a women's regatta, the ones, the always on my boat, women are encouraged to speak up. I want more information. It's new to me. I don't drive the boat almost never unless it's a women's regatta. So I'm trying to focus on driving and looking around the race course and watching what's happening on the boat. So I welcome input from all the crew. And I think the crew just find that really exciting to be able to speak their minds. What do they think should happen on the race course and tactics wise, and what should be happening on the boat, and what should we prepare for, what maneuvers coming next. And so I think it's really empowering, and women recognize, I do know what I'm doing, and I do know how to communicate it, and I enjoy having somebody who's listening and inviting this. And I think for many skippers, there might be too much chat. For me, I enjoy, all the input. Some of it I'm just listening, some I'm responding to, but I know I feel empowered by it. And I think everyone on the crew does too. Big part of the party afterwards is people saying, oh my gosh, I can't wait to do this again next year. This was so much fun. So I think it's recognizing what we do know and having a venue where we're allowed to talk about that and contribute.
So I know we have a couple questions about kind of the mechanics of how this works. And do you only use big boats, keel boats? Does Women Underway have dinghies as part of the program?
Good question.
That's from our friend Amy.
The races have always been keel boats. But I know Jane has an idea about dinghies. So Jane, I'll let you take.
I'm pretty excited about this.
Yes.
Actually, Amy, it might have come from your input actually, but a few meetings ago, people had asked about dinghies and saying that we all felt that it was a great way of really getting the feel of a boat. And it's quite different when you're on a dinghy. And so one of our sessions during the summer, just going through the process of organising to see if we can get a little fleet of dinghies out and do a dinghy day. We've done it before with Herrington Harbour Sailing Association as a big group. And the thought here is that we'll do women underway dinghies to start off with, and then open it up and invite the rest of the club to come and join us after we've had a bit of fun by ourselves.
So that leads to another question from another Amy. Is Women Underway a subset of HHSA, or is it separate? And how does it relate to Women on the Water, and is that an actual organization? So I think one thing that might be helpful for others who are thinking of, do I first of all, would I like to join Women Underway, and is that possible if I'm not a member of HHSA? And how does that work? How do you?
Sure.
Are you a subset?
It's a great question. So Women Underway is one of the programs that is run by Herrington Harbour Sailing Association, but you do not need to be a member, nor do you need to have a boat to become part of Women Underway. It's one of the parts of the program that we open up to everyone. There are some benefits to membership, and to be honest, Herrington Harbour Sailing Association, our Commodore calls it the best deal on the bay. I think that belies the fantastic organisation we have, but it's not expensive anyway. And so our members do get a slight benefit. They get to come to all of the events. But Women Underway, you're welcome to come to both our Zoom meetings once a month, and then our in-person meetings when they start again, which will be very short, which will be shortly. For the regatta this year, for skippers who are members of HHSA, entry is free, and for skippers who are not members, it'll be for a nominal fee of $25 for the entry fee. And so you can see we try to make sure that our members still get the benefit of it, but we welcome people. We've had people from New Jersey, haven't we, Kristen? I was thinking a few weeks ago. We've had people join us from all over the place, especially on our Zoom calls, and we love it. You're welcome to come and join and to be part of it. And yeah, you do not have to be a member of the club, but we'd love you to be a member of the club as well. Kristen's a great example of that. Started with sort of simultaneously with Women Underway, and then she and Seth became a member. And we have plenty of people who join that way.
Emily, it sounds like this grew organically from an idea that you had. But if someone were thinking, I'd like to try and replicate this at my club, do you have any advice on, maybe from lessons learned, or if you were to start this, how would one approach their club leadership and selling the idea, or finding other women in your club to get a cohort to start things?
I think the first thing would be to find the women and get some energy going. Jane mentioned purposeful meetings, and so I think that's a great place to start. I know we've had some training meetings that men would have liked to have joined and might have benefited from, and we've opened some meetings to men. I think fire safety on a boat is one example I can think of. So I think, and it can start small. It can start with 5 women who want to learn more, who want to engage, whether on the water or on shore. I'm definitely a word of mouth person. And that's how it started with HHSA, because it was a long time ago, but certainly social media is a big part of it. When we opened up a forum on our website, on the HHSA website for the Women Underway, it was a great way to communicate. And we have a formal calendar for the club, so we would put our events on the calendar. Facebook is a big part of communicating, and Jane is I'm sure many are, but Jane comes to mind as being very successful, generating interest via Facebook and other social media. We are a subset or a committee in the club, but that doesn't really affect how we operate. So we did that independently of originally independently of the club itself. But it's very nice now to be recognized by the leadership of the club as a valid organization within the club. So it's not difficult, and it doesn't take a lot of people. It doesn't take any funds. It just takes that interest and commitment to doing it.
Mm-hmm. And how would you describe how this strengthens the whole club, right? Because like, what is the saying? The rising tide raises all boats. I'm feeling like this is something like that. So how does it strengthen the whole club?
So I'll discuss that briefly. It was last year, I think. I'll be corrected by our Vice Commodore maybe. I think it was the #1 source of new membership for us.
That's why I joined.
And yeah, and Kristen's a great example, right? We get great women, and we get their great husbands who sail, or their partners, or we get single women. And so we've just had this influx of energy. It's also something I think that the club is really, really proud of, and should be. We've run for 20 years this incredible program started by Emily for the Women's Regatta, and we're really well known for it. And I think it sort of is a great flag for the kind of club that we are. You know, we think that helping women improve their sailing skills is important, because we're a really caring club, and a club that's very thoughtful. So I think it's been good.
Kristen, I see you nodding, and I know that the program brought you to the club. And so I just wondered if you wanted to share a little bit about that experience. And then also, my understanding is when you had the opportunity to get on these boats and rotate positions, is that something that you've experienced, rotating positions aboard? But going back to just starting with, how the program, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just, I think women are saying it's content driven. It's the content of the program that pulls you to the club. If you want to share about that.
And that's definitely true. I like the connection and the social aspect, and even just knowing other sailors, female sailors in my area. But the content, like I was interested in the spring commissioning, and we've got one coming up about buying a boat that Hhsa is going to lead from a female perspective, which is important. And so all of that attracted me, and just having kind of this separate space. And speaking of how other clubs can do things like that, and starting clubs, and the energy that Emily had mentioned to start with is great. I think it's also important to not lose sight of the fact that it is a women's club, to provide that safe space, to use that term, where women can ask questions that they may be embarrassed about asking in front of the men, or things like that. Having those spaces, those connections also has been really awesome. And hopping on other women's boats, I've actually done almost everything on my boat. So it was really cool to get on other boats and to see how things work a little bit differently, like with the wheel versus a tiller, or roller furling versus the hang-on jib, and things like that. That was really cool to have the opportunity to try all those things.
That's great. And I want to make sure I get to ask you about, you're a photographer with a project that is near and dear to the hearts of sailing women. Can you tell us a little bit about your Her Helm project, and how that also is another way that you're supporting women in sailing?
Yes, that has been an awesome project. And Jane, I've talked with her a lot about it. She's one of the early captains that I featured in the project. It's not just sailors. It is any woman who is in charge of a boat. She could be a licensed captain. She could own her own sailboat, motorboat. She could be captain of a cruise ship or a fishing charter. I wanted to feature the women who are in charge of their own vessel. So it's a personal project that I came out with. It's something that I can go out and kind of do what I want and not be client driven. To get to celebrate these women, and to help break the stereotype, which I fell into before I met so many of the women, that I didn't think that I saw very many women captains. And there are more men than women still, but there are a lot more women than I thought at first. So it's really awesome to be able to celebrate them, really is what it is, and to share their stories with as wide an audience as possible. And so that when you see a man and a woman coming up to the dock, or a woman coming up to the dock, you don't have to think, oh, the man, any of the snide comments that people normally say, which many of our captains have heard. But maybe it'll give people at least another reason to think, oh, well, maybe she is the captain. And in increasingly more instances, she is, which has been really awesome. Some of the ways that people have, the women that I've talked to for the project have really wanted to showcase of putting more women in front, in charge of their vessel, especially without men, if they have a male partner, because the dynamic really changes. So if they have a certain dynamic on land, or if they're just used to kind of deferring, like assuming that the male knows more on the boat, but you put the woman on the boat, for the people who didn't grow up with that confidence, it gives them a chance to really grow their skills. And a lot of people in my project have talked about that.
Yeah, that's great. And it's called the Herhelm Project.
Yes.
So, yeah, thank you for supporting women that way.
And
Now,
if you haven't seen her photographs, Kristen is an incredible photographer.
Thank you.
But but just as much insightful. So read the stories. She manages to pull out the true thread of the story with each of the captains. She did it with me, and I didn't even sort of realize what it was. And she really gave me something. I thought, wow, that's exactly how I feel. It was a fantastic project.
I wonder,
celebrate,
Kristen, if you see a common thread in that project of the stories you tell, and I wonder if Emily, what Kristen's answer, we don't know what it's going to be, but if you will find that it resonates with what you have seen as a common thread among the women in Women Underway. Do either one of you want to speak to a common thread that you've seen in the stories you've heard?
So there is definitely the expected thread of, like I mentioned, women who show up at the dock, or they're working on their boat with, say, a male friend, and somebody walks by and talks to the male like, oh, you're the captain. Lots of those assumptions that have happened. There's also, surprisingly, has been a lot of instances that are not like that. Women who have never questioned whether it's just how they were raised, or whether they've got full support from childhood and from having female role models from a very young age. Some of the women, and then they grow up and they realize, oh, other people, like, this is a problem that I see in the world now.
Okay, I'm going to jump in because Jane is clearly in the jetway, and you have, gone over and above in your commitment to sharing the story of Women Underway. So we thank you so much.
Probably got me checking my boarding pass and the thing. So yeah, look, I'm so delighted to be able to be here. I know that Kristen and Emily will follow on, but for anyone who's interested in it, if you go to hhsa.org, down the left-hand side is our menu, and you go to Women's Sailing, you'll find my email, womenunderway@hhsa.org. Send me an email, send us a note, let us know if you'd like to get involved, if other clubs would like to get involved. I'd happily connect with them, and we can help. So thanks, Beth. Thanks, everyone else.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Have a good flight.
Bye-bye, Jane.
So Emily, we were going to ask you if you'd seen the common threads of the stories of the women that you've met over the many years you've been in this group.
I think, again, the common thread is just women feeling confident about their skills on a boat. Whether they're new beginners, excuse me. I think it was a little salt from that.
Okay, ladies, I'm going to ask you to look. I'm going to interrupt while Emily gets a drink. Is it SSHA or is it supposed to be HHSA on the website?
Herrington Harbour Sailing Association.
Okay. All right. Just be clear. I think we want to make sure. And if you've used your search engine, we can find you too. But go ahead, Emily. I know you were.
So yes, I think it's women increasing their confidence, and I'm whether it's on the water or on shore, and whether their comfort zone with sailing starts out small or very big, expanding that comfort zone. And, just having a lot of aha moments of knot tying, for example. If you're on a boat racing or cruising, someone expects that you know how to tie a knot and you know how to tie it their way. And you might feel uncomfortable asking because there's the assumption that everyone knows how to do it. But many people don't. So we have this knot tying women underway meeting, and people brought 3-foot lengths of line and practiced tying knots and shared the basic knots, on a horn cleat and a bowline, but also more advanced knots. And I learned a few knots, which I need to practice. But everyone can learn something, no matter where you start. Everybody can learn something and come away feeling more confident and more empowered.
It sounds like there really aren't any women who know too little or too much about sailing to fit into this type of group.
Exactly. And I think all of our leaders, with a few exceptions, so, maybe, 30 different sessions, the leaders have been women and mostly part of the group. And if they hadn't started out as part of the group, many of them have joined and become regulars. So there's no place to sign up for being a member of Women Underway. It's just follow any of the register and come on to some of the Zoom meetings. And again, when we get it happening again in person, you show up.
Yeah.
And I see one of our comments is, I crew on several boats where I'm often the only woman. And this group, this community has been really inspiring to see and to meet others with similar interests. So, I think that says it all, that we really want to give this platform for inspiring other people, because I certainly have had the experience where I'm often the only woman. And, it's a different feeling, right?
At Jubilee, fortunately, we've sailed with quite a few women over the years. Right now, we have 4 regular female crew. One is our bow girl, and she's amazing. So it's not very common to see women on the bow. I've always trimmed main on Jubilee, so it's not that common to see a female trimming main. So we've had women in important positions on the boat. And during the women's regatta, we've had women come on and practice with us, and then race, and then become regular crew on Jubilee. And I think that happens more often than not when you have visiting women come and participate in the regatta, and then they decide they love the boat, they love the women that they've raced with on that boat, and they may become part of the regular crew. And most boats are looking for crew. So it is a good way to get your foot in the door, decide if it's a good fit for you, and if it's a good fit with whoever the captain is.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned visiting sailors that are women that are visiting. So if I'm watching this and I'm interested in either the racing, your regatta, or the cruise, maybe I don't have a boat, or maybe I do have a boat. Does it matter? Do you welcome women without boats? Do you welcome women with boats? How's that all work?
It's all inclusive. And honestly, we have more women without boats who are involved. But there are some women with boats who may not be comfortable doing an overnight or a weekend cruise. And if they express that, then someone who is comfortable doing it and has done it before can come along, as that security blanket, that coach. And the woman, the owner of the boat, who is a little nervous, may get out there and realize, I have nothing to be nervous about because I do know what I'm doing.
So if I have my own boat and I think I'd like to try and take it somewhere or do a race on my own, but I'm a little scared, you might match me with another woman who has helmed the boat in a race or has done an overnight cruise on her own.
Exactly. And that's the kind of The more women who have boats, who get involved, the more active we can be on the water, whether it's racing or cruising. And I'm still nervous every time I go out on a women's regatta and have to be the one responsible for the boat and make the decisions. Even given the input from other crew, I'm ultimately the one making decisions. It is an uncomfortable feeling. I do have butterflies, but when I'm doing it and afterwards, I still am feeling so empowered year after year after year.
It's amazing, that feeling that you're describing right now, the difference between being a crew, even like being the only crew on a boat with you and your partner. If the other person is always in charge of the decisions, there's not the weight on you when you are the one in charge of it. And I've experienced this, and I'm like, oh, this actually does make me more nervous when I'm the one making the call. But to experience that and move on and realize it's okay, having that opportunity to experience that is really amazing.
And I suspect that in a women's group, there's a lot of encouragement, and you know, maybe you feel more comfortable in an all-female group talking about those butterflies, and then other women can share how they've overcome them, and that's natural and that's not a sign to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're good cheerleaders.
Yeah.
And the regatta is a very welcoming regatta. It's not Annapolis. And we actually communicate more. The race committee communicates more here for a women's regatta than they do for our normal races, because it's women who usually aren't captaining. It's women who may be visiting from other clubs. Last year's race, we had 10 boats, 5 of whom were from other clubs. So again, if it's nervous for me in my own club, in my own racing course, you know, it could be intimidating or nerve-wracking for women to come and race on a different race course with a course book they're not familiar with. So we're very welcoming. This year, I think we plan to link a HHSA woman with a visiting boat, just as sort of a welcoming committee, help you dock, introduce you to, you know, the club and the layout, make sure you have the course book and understand the courses. And we are competitive, but we want to be safe. Number one, we want to have fun, and we want people to come back. So we will do everything we can as a club, and the race committee, the principal race officer, to over communicate on the radio, to make sure that everybody's having a good time. Now, if you can't hear the radio, as I did a few years ago and did the long course instead of the short course, that's on me. But you know, we all make mistakes and learn from them. I will make sure next time, if I'm not completely sure of what the course is, I'll call in on the radio and ask, and they will, you know, I won't get private information, but it will be information that's then communicated to everybody. So asking questions if you're not sure of something is welcome.
It sounds like a very supportive environment.
Very. That's the point.
Yeah, we're getting down to our last 5 or 10 minutes here. And Kristen, is there anything else you want to say about, you know, your involvement in this group and really what it's meant to you and how it's, you know, furthering your pursuit of sailing? Maybe a time that stands out that you're like, yeah, this is why I'm here.
I loved when I started, I guess that first summer, one of the things talking with Jane that she does, which is kind of representative of what Women Underway does. It's not necessarily a part of Women Underway, but just the welcoming, right? Like, she brings out purposefully women who have never sailed before, something. And multiple of us I've done it on my boat also to other people. And the cruise, specifically wanting the women's cruise, asking people like, what skills would you like to work on? And getting a chance to practice those things. And with the regatta, exactly what Emily's talking about with putting people in new race positions, new on their boat. And really it is welcome to everyone. Like we've been saying, there's plenty of women who have been awesome contacts to make connections, who've never been on a boat before, and they just reached out, and I've met them on cruises, and they've started racing, who like, hey, this seems like a cool life. I want to learn how to do this. I didn't get a chance to do it growing up, but now I want to do it. And so we've given a lot of women the opportunity to do that, the welcome mat anyway. Like you could go to any club kind of and do that, but we really make a point to lay out a welcome mat for it.
That's a great way of putting it, Kristen.
Yeah. Emily, anything else that you would like to share? Any challenges that you faced in getting this progression of the organization that others might face if they were trying to do something similar, or anything you're particularly proud of in terms of this group has grown and been able to, the regatta comes to mind for sure, that that you're proud that the organization of Women Underway has been able to sustain.
It's the energy that it's sustained over all these years, and the new members who are coming in, the new energy, the ability to make so many contacts with social networking.
What's your age range, by the way?
Well,
ballpark,
in the 20s to in the 60s. Yeah. So there's no, there's no difference in the ability of a 20-year-old or a 60-year-old to sail and enjoy what we're doing. I'm very proud of the regatta. I'm proud of the fact that we have women from Hhsa who are continuing to race and feeling more comfortable every time. And the fact that it's sort of becoming a bay-wide event and we're getting visiting boats. So I'd love to see that grow. And I think with social media, it certainly is. Women Who Sail, the Facebook group, is aware of it. And I know the J105s are thinking about coming down. So word is getting out. So that's very exciting. I'm really proud of that.
And are you doing? No, go ahead.
I'm proud of Jane for that social networking part and for wanting to grow the organization and become more inclusive of other women in other clubs, for the Zoom seminars as well as for the cruise and the regatta. And
the Zoom seminars are going on right now, right? So yes.
It seems to me that's an excellent way for any woman to kind of test out, how do I feel about this group? You're not making a large commitment to jump on Zoom and just see the dynamics of the group. Exactly. And I think we have gotten club members and certainly regular Women Underway members who were introduced to us via Zoom and are now regulars. So that's been great. I know the one Zoom meeting I came in, I was just so impressed by the variety of backgrounds that the women had. And, certain women were knew the geography of the bay, and certain women knew things about the maintenance of the boat, and other women seemed to know things about planning a cruise, and other women knew how to build a cohesive crew on your boat. And I just was very impressed by the diversity of skills within the group and the sharing that was going on.
That's awesome.
If one boat does something really well, they'd like to let the other boats learn how to replicate that part of their system. Yes.
Yeah.
I know we are getting towards the end of the hour. I do want to put out the date for the Women's Regatta this year is June 11th. So it's early in the season.
And is registration open now or will be soon?
If it's not open today, it will be in a few days.
Okay.
Last time I went in.
June 11th.
June 11th.
Okay.
It's usually a 3-race format. If you come down Friday evening, you'll have this welcoming a small committee to help you get your the lay of the land. And You can come down early Saturday morning on the 11th and participate right on the water without having to come to shore. And there'll be some Zoom events beforehand, just for a briefing, introducing the course book, making sure you feel comfortable addressing any questions that you may have. So we're looking for more participation. Whether you
Do you need race experience?
No, you don't need race experience. You need to have a positive attitude, a can-do attitude, and communicate with the skipper about what the expectations are with your position on the boat.
Yep.
And expand your comfort zone.
Yep.
Hey, Kristen, did you have experience racing before you became part of this group?
I had been on a friend's boat during a couple of like beer can races around Baltimore, and maybe one or two small races otherwise.
Yeah.
But I would not consider myself as having had racing experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a great time. That my whole boat was awesome. The dynamics between the people was great. And we were really proud of how well we did.
Yeah, that's great. Here's a question. How much I think the question is there a cost? How much is if you were bringing a boat, is there a cost to entering?
Yes, Susanna, this year we are charging, it might be $20 $25 for a visiting boat to come down. For HHSA boats, there's no additional fees to race, but for visiting boats, $25, which is well worth for the whole crew, the admission to the barbecue afterwards, to the party afterwards, because we have a wonderful onshore party that the club sponsors.
And checking out the marina, which is nice too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful marina. Ashley Love did a video with drone footage and interviews of the regatta in 2019. That's right. 2020, we didn't have it because of COVID. So on the website, somewhere on hhsa.org, there's a link to this interview. And many of you know Ashley Love and would be able to find this on a Facebook page or YouTube. So it was a women's regatta at HHSA in 2019. So that'll also give you a good introduction to what the day looks like, what the event looks like.
Yeah, it sounds like another great resource just to get a lay of the land, so to speak, ahead of time. Well, Emily and Kristen, thank you so much. Again, Kristen's photography, where can we find that online?
So the Herhelm project is at simply herhelm.com. And then for general, if you want portraits, there's a link to my business website, which is kristenrakowskiphotography.com. But the project of all the women sailors is herhelm.com.
Great. Thank you. And Emily, thank you so much for sharing. Just the whole trajectory of this program is so impressive to hear about. And thank you for sharing and supporting other women in their growth to expand their comfort zone. I love it.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
Well, again, yeah, thanks for being our guest, and thanks to everybody who tuned in. I think this is really cool. Sailing, I don't think it's any secret. Sailing's popularity, people really think that it's hard to get into, and it's really not. And I'm so encouraged to see women and other people getting into this, because my experience has been where the women go, the men will go too. And so hopefully the sport will start to, get cultivated and more popular. So,
yes.
I love the fact that your club membership is growing from this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We had a great audience tonight. A lot of them are interested in how to get a hold of you guys. I didn't have time to type in I just had your website type in. I didn't get Herhelm in there,
It's easier to spell anyway. Herhelm.
Well, what I did was
people can understand
during this whole time, I went over to Herhelm and go check it out. It is really nice. I love seeing women there that I recognize, but also it shows you that there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of women out there that are really doing this very well locally. And by the way, photographer, he's pretty outstanding as well.
Thank you.
So anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. And Emily and Kristen, stick around. After this, we'll go have a party in the green room as we always do. But thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Mount Gay for sponsoring this. Oh, and before I forget, if you are at all interested, and I hope Emily, Kristen, and Jane will be there, because I know I and Beth will be there. The SpinSheet crew party is back. May 1st at the Eastport Yacht Club from 4 to 6. And if you need an excuse to be in Annapolis, it's actually the spring sailboat show. So do that. Come see us. Come meet with everybody. Get involved, and we really hope to see you there. So anyhow,
I'm excited about it.
Yeah. You can also go to spinsheet.com and sign up for the Crew Finder, which is a awesome little thing where you can get onto Crew. Anyway, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll definitely and hopefully see you soon at the crew party. Take care. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.